Hey everybody, Aaron Dillon here, Managing Director of AG Dillon Co. We're a venture capital firm focused on pre-IPO companies, working with individual investors, financial advisors, family offices, and institutional investors. All right, I got a pre-IPO company update for you here for the week ending 20 January 2023. We're going to hit on a couple things. One, we'll do big company news for last week, large capital raises for the week. We'll look at individual pre-IPO company stock performance. And then lastly, we'll take a look at do a company spotlight on Instacart. All right. So first up, let's take a look at SpaceX. SpaceX is getting closer and closer to putting its new rocket into production. The Starship is absolutely massive. It's 400 feet tall. So that's like a 28-story tall office building. It's a huge rocket. And Starship carries about 10 times more payload versus Falcon. That's the SpaceX rocket that most people have seen in videos that lands kind of back down on Earth. If you go to YouTube and Google it, it's like incredible to watch. So this week, SpaceX did a wet dress rehearsal. That's kind of the technical term for Starship. Basically, it filled it up with rocket fuel all the way up to the top, complete fill up. It's a similar kind of situation as if the rocket was actually going to take off. So Starship's going to be a huge deal for SpaceX. It increase the amount of payload that it can deliver to space annually, which is, of course, directly tied to revenue. But it's also going to power this $3 billion NASA astronaut mission to the moon. So the astronauts will get into Starship, this new rocket, and go to the moon in a couple of years' time. So SpaceX has a $137 billion valuation as of December 2022. It was up 29% in 2002 for the year. Okay, Deel is a tech recruiter and payroll provider, which is like uniquely focused on international employees. And it's announced its 2022 performance metrics, and it's also released 3 new products this past week. Deel had a huge year with annualized revenue increasing 417%. That is a massive year to 295 million. That's the annualized revenue run rate, right? And EBITDA was also positive for 4 months, the last 4 months, and it's got this huge 85% gross profit margin. So it's like really, really impressive business metrics there. They posted a $12 billion valuation from a $50 million raise in May 2022. Maybe that came down. I don't know. These performance metrics, it might actually go up next time they do a raise. So I can see, with growth like this, they probably will have an increase. Deel is now expanding into core HR tech, so human resources tech, and it's offering U.S. payroll services in addition to its international payroll services. So these solutions should make their business customers even more sticky, and I anticipate it's going to drive a healthy amount of incremental revenue. All right, last up, we got Stripe. So Stripe locked up a huge deal with Amazon this week. So Stripe and Amazon have been working together since 2017 when Amazon was expanding into Europe and Asia. Fast forward to today, and Stripe will now be processing Amazon's payments for most of Europe, US, Europe, and Canada. Okay, that's a big market. And they didn't provide specific numbers on there, but I have to imagine this is going to be a huge uptick, a huge revenue win for Stripe. But wait, Amazon gets something out of this too. Stripe's will continue to expand its use of Amazon Web Services, the company's cloud computing offering, right? So it's interesting. This is like the second deal in the last couple of weeks where like cloud computing was part of the discussion. And we saw this with OpenAI and Microsoft. So Microsoft made a capital investment into OpenAI, but then OpenAI basically agreed to use Microsoft Azure. That's a Microsoft cloud computing solution exclusively, right? So it's almost like money coming in and then right back over to Microsoft. Perhaps similar type things here with Amazon. Money's coming in through this incremental revenue deal with Stripe and then coming right back to Amazon Web Services. So I could actually see more deals like this coming together for the big cloud partners. So it's like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. Those increasingly become bigger parts of those companies' earnings. It appears like some of these pre-IPO companies are in the mix now too. So Stripe has a $63 billion valuation as of this month when they did an internal valuation announcement. Okay. All right. So now let's take a look at some of the big company, take a look at the big capital raises, excuse me, for this past week. We didn't have any newly minted unicorns, but there were 2 companies I did want to highlight. So Vannevar Labs, I think I'm saying that correctly. It's a national security tech company. They pulled in $75 million Series B at a $575 million post-money valuation. So that was 798% valuation increase from its Series A in May of 21. That's huge. It's just awesome growth. And all of the employees at Vannevar are former U.S. intelligence officers. So these folks are like super dialed in to what they're doing. Vannevar Decrypt, it is their sole product. That's what it appears to be, at least. It's a foreign text workflow platform built for national security, is how they define it. So I would assume Vannevar only sells to governments since it deals with national security. I'm assuming it's also probably, the U.S. government and its friends. Kind of stay away from perhaps a lot of the emerging markets. So that kind of makes for an interesting business model when you have so few customers. I suppose you have to have a ton of relationships there to be able to monetize those properly and grow business and grow revenue. And then, okay, the second company I want to hit is Binske, which is the public-facing brand of Petrarian Global. Okay, so Binske is a cannabis company. And get this, they raised $80 million seed at a $80 million valuation. So it's a little wonky because this is not a startup company. Like Binske cut a deal back in 2021 with a huge like cannabis distribution company in Michigan for $50 million, right? But yeah, you got to check out these guys' website. They literally, it's exactly what you think it is. You kind of go there, you can buy, cannabis, edibles, vape, oils, things like that, right? But they're only available in 6 states right now. It's like California, Florida, Colorado, a couple others. Nothing in New York or the Northeast from what I saw. But the website's really interesting. You got to check it out. It's like an experience. So get in there, look at that. Cannabis, I guess, is now becoming the new cigarettes. So it'd be interesting to see if Philip Morris, tries to get in this game and swoop in and buy some of these folks. Philip Morris, of course, is still the big 800-pound gorilla in tobacco. All right. And let's talk a little pre-IPO stock performance. So pre-IPO stocks were down for the week, down 1.4% versus S&P 500 down 67 basis points, and S&P 500 growth up 14 basis points. And the year-to-date numbers don't look good versus the benchmarks either. Here's like individual companies, right? And their trailing returns that make up this pre-IPO secondary market index that I put together for you. But Chime, Flexport, Discord, and getting crushed. And that's really what's kind of pulling these year-to-date numbers down. Surprisingly, OpenSea and Kraken are leading the upward charge in 23 year-to-date. It appears that these names are maybe oversold through the whole crypto kind of blow up in fourth quarter and what's going on maybe this month. And folks are starting to align with who they think the winners might be in the long run for both OpenSea and Kraken. Kraken even had a pretty decent fourth quarter, if I remember correctly, as well. But there's not too many exchanges out there. I mean, obviously there's Coinbase, right? But Kraken appears to be a survivor in that kind of this pre-IPO space. So it could be interesting to see if they continue to perform here. Okay. All right, so looking at the week specifically, pre-IPO stock performance, Flexport was down big for the week. Epic Games and Deel also materially down, and then Kraken, as I mentioned, was the bright spot for the week. Here's the growth at $10,000. We're still waiting to roll through those Q1 2022 highs. All right, so now let's take a look at Instacart. So Instacart's a grocery delivery service. The company was founded in 2012, posted a $10 billion valuation as a 409A that happened in December of 22. They've raised $2.74 billion in capital to date. That's a lot of money, especially in a $10 billion valuation. And PitchBook does have these guys as profitable, which I do think is interesting these days. All right, and then looking at that valuation. So again, it was a $10 billion valuation. That was down 74% from its last primary financing round in March of 21, where it was a $39 billion valuation. The company posted 1.8 billion in revenue. That was 2021 revenue. I'm sure we'll get a 22 number here in the next couple of months. And it's got 5.5 million customers. It's got an incredible list of investors too, premier names from the VC world, and also kind of more recently in these later rounds from hedge funds and the mutual fund space. And here we got all the partners at the very bottom of the page there, all the partners that grocery store partners that these folks partner with. So it's really interesting, kind of well-established model. And Instacart makes money 4 ways. So this is their revenue model. So one, they have revenue sharing. So every time they sell something from the grocery store pays them, gives them a cut, right? There's also delivery fees. So from the customer, so the person who's in the app ordering the food, there's so that's anywhere from like $4 to $10 for the delivery. But of course, they kind of layer in some other fees, potential fees there if the bags are heavy or whatever it might be. Also alcohol service, they charge a premium for that. There's surge pricing too, like an Uber or Lyft would charge for ride sharing car service. If there's a lot of activity coming in all at the same time, they'll bump up the price, the delivery price for you too. Instacart Express is kind of their subscription service. It's $10 a month or $100 for the year. And it gives you kind of unlimited deliveries, right? Which is a really interesting concept. And then lastly, they get ads and ads. So, you're going through, you're shopping for something, you type in peanut butter, who gets that first spot? Naturally, Jif, would pay, some amounts of money to get that kind of first spot in there. But okay. All right, that's what we got for you today. Thanks for joining the webinar. Drop me an email if you have any pre-IPO research needs, or check out agdillon.com for some research. Also, we have 2 venture funds that are out there raising right now. There's the Top 15 fund, which is on agdillon.com. Just look under the VC fund heading there in the menu. And then also we have a SPV for SpaceX that's out there right now raising capital. We got about at least 4 million for that. So if you want to get in on SpaceX, check out agdillon.com/SpaceX for the investment thesis. Okay, thanks. See you guys next week.